Hello, everyone. As a part of PHUSE podcast series, the undeniable truth about 6 skills possessed by statistical programming heads that no one is telling you, today we're going to talk about collaboration, described as building partnerships and working together with others to meet shared objectives. We have Paul and Louis.
I'm Paul Bukowick. I'm the head of programming at Takeda Pharmaceuticals. I've been in that position for about 2 years now. My career in the pharmaceutical industry in the programming space started in the early 90s. My educational background is in statistics, and I started doing programming, working for a CRO. That's where I learned a little bit about the drug development process and honed my statistical programming skills. Over the course from that period forward, I performed in roles in the programming space, also in the data management space. I spent a lot of time working in the data standards space, especially as our data needed to be compliant with the CDISC standards, and learned a lot about collaboration over the years in those different facets of my career.
Thank you. Louis, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Louise Weber. I'm head of statistical programming at Merck KGaA. I joined the industry in 1993 with a degree in applied statistics, and most of my career has been progression through the statistical programming career path, though I've also held other positions such as biometrics project manager. In fact, most of my roles have involved some form of managing CRO pharma partnerships from both CRO and the pharma side. I first took a head of programming role, a global head of programming role in my previous company, which I joined in 2011. That was a CRO, and I joined Merck in 2013 into my current position of head of statistical programming. So overall, I've been in this kind of role for about 10 years.
So how do you define collaboration in pharma industry, Paul?
I think it starts, with the drug development process itself. As a programmer and as a leader of a group that performs the programming or oversees the programming, there is a good amount of collaboration that takes place in the technical space. Working with our colleagues who are developing how the data are collected, our statistical colleagues who are designing the experimental part of the trial, and then thinking about how do we take that information and then follow the specifications that are provided for us to produce the data sets and the ultimate analyses and what ultimately gets submitted to our regulatory agencies. As part of that, I think what's important as we grow as programmers in the industry is learning that the collaboration also isn't just about the technical piece. It's about the operational aspects, the procedural aspects. We're working with other organizations that manage our data or produce the analysis, and if we're working with a company that performs that work for us, in an outsourcing approach. So learning a lot about different styles, different objectives as part of the process is very important as well, in addition to just what it takes to get the job done.
Louis, you have to add anything to that?
To build on what Paul said about working with partner CROs, there are several key aspects of collaboration there. So firstly, it helps to recognize and to understand the different dynamic and pressures in the different kinds of organizations. Understanding one another's perspective can really help when you're trying to solve something which impacts both organizations, which of course, usually it does. And it's also really important to build a relationship where you can have open communication. And there are a couple of key elements that I would give as examples there. So firstly, in terms of resource management, so we expect CROs to adequately resource to meet our demands. And we often need to help them to gain transparency on what those demands may be. And in my experience, especially around what I would call gray areas, so activities that may come which are not strictly part of study delivery, but which we may still want to pass to the CRO. So to give an example, during the drug development process, we know that there are certain times that there will be discussions internally around a decision point. And invariably, those discussions can lead to requests for additional analyses. And if we want to give those to the CRO, those requests, then we need to help them prepare resources for them. And so that may require some additional communication with the CRO to help them plan for those pieces. And similarly, from the CRO's perspective, there may need to be some adjustment to plan for something that's less clearly defined. And then another aspect which I would highlight in terms of open collaboration is to ensure that both parties are comfortable to raise potential challenges. So if you can address challenges early, then you can come to an agreement on how to resolve, or if you can't resolve, have a mitigation plan ready so that you hopefully can avoid a crisis.
What makes a good collaboration, and how did you personally develop the skill?
What makes a good collaboration is depends on the situation. And I mean, ultimately, I think, you want everybody to be happy as part of the process. But I think, what I feel I've developed over the years in terms of that skill is really a lot to do with patience and not having to have it all figured out at once. And because not everybody is coming at it the same way. And so it takes time to really get to know the people you're collaborating with, what their objectives are. And again, I think that patience factor is very important, because I know in the past I probably rushed and thought everything was easy based on my expectations, and that wasn't the case. And so again, I think give yourself that time to work through the solutions, and I think you ultimately get to a better place as a result.
Excellent. Louise, you have anything to add?
So good collaborations based on shared objectives and a will to achieve something together. So to be objective, to listen to the other person's perspective and really listen and absorb rather than just waiting for your next turn to speak. How did I develop the skill? I think over years of collaboration, everything we do is collaboration, and not just in this role, but all through your career, you're working as part of a team. And what evolves as you progress through the grades and through the different job levels is really the breadth of the collaboration, I would say. So you deal with more and more stakeholders. When I joined the industry and I was part of a team, my interactions were more with other programmers and statisticians and data managers and so on. And when you get into a lead role, your direct interactions broaden. And again, then when you move into a functional head role, they can broaden even more. And then I've already talked about collaboration also with partner CROs on top of that. So it's more an evolution, and you adjust as you go along the way, I think. One thing that I've learned in my current roles, my most recent learning is the slow down part. So, and I know Paul mentioned this, slow down to bring people along with you so that you're in your head, you know what you're trying to achieve and you know your point of view, but you need to give the other party a chance to catch up with you. And the same, you need to slow down and really listen to them. So that would be my most recent learning.
Now that you refer to building a relationship, what are the steps you take to develop the relationship? And how do you recover from a challenging relationship? Louise? For me, the key point in the beginning of the relationship is to be clear about expectations, and expectations on both sides. So to have an open discussion about how you expect to work together and what you expect from one another. So just as an example, that can come back again to I expect open communication and to just be able to speak openly with one another. So just as an example. Recovering from a challenge within the collaboration, there I would say that you need to be able to leave the emotion out of it and to be able to step back and focus on what you're trying to achieve together, whether it's a problem to solve or whatever that may be, to keep focusing on the problem statement. And that can also help you in the stepping back. The other thing is to make sure that you're listening to the other person and not just really listening and not just waiting to speak and get your point in, but really trying to see things from one another's perspective. Paul, you have anything to add?
Those are all really, really important points as part of the process and the life cycle of the relationship and the collaboration. I think it's something I've learned as well as you go through these experiences, is that, you know, I don't know, it applies to a lot of things, but, you know, really understanding what you can control. That, you know, you often can't make somebody look at things your way or see things your way or understand, you know, really where you're going, but you can change how you react to that. You can control, you know, your decision making processes, and I think it's important to focus on that and know how you need to adapt to the situation, because you'll be more successful when you're able to adapt. And that might you know, contribute to the openness, as I think as someone sees you adapting and listening, I think they'll recognize that maybe you know, they can play their part in the process. And I feel that tied to that is knowing that you can't always solve things immediately. It does sometimes take time to solve some of the relationship problems. And you might have to choose your battles, so to speak, and focus on key areas, and maybe let some things go as part of that process.
That was an excellent conversation. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and subscribe for our future episodes. We would love to hear from you, and please provide your feedback and a review for others to know what to expect. Thank you for your time.